Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares with the financial and economic reports of the day. Coming up, Milan Expo 2015 launches amid much hubbub. And what lies ahead for the UK as it goes to the polls? First headlines. The EU raised its growth outlook for the Eurozone in 2015 to 1.5% as cheap oil and a weak euro supported the trade bloc. Consumer prices across the 19-nation Eurozone would rise by 0.1% in 2015, hinting that stimulus by the European Central Bank was having an effect. Unemployment in the EU is expected to fall to 9.6% in 2015 and 9.2% in 2016, and in the Eurozone to 11% and 10.5%. In France, the economy is expected to grow at 1.1% and slowly gain momentum in the next 2 years, driven by private consumption. Gulf oil exporters must reduce spending and diversify their economies to cope with lower revenues caused by the drop in crude prices, the IMF said. Oil export revenues for GCC countries are forecast to be $280 billion lower this year from last year. With the exception of gas-rich Qatar and Kuwait, all GCC states are expected to face budget deficits this year. The multilateral organization also said GCC countries should cut energy subsidies to minimize public spending and trigger a change in consumer behavior.
Most GCC countries still have the domestic sales price for their energy products below the international price, which means that they're being subsidized in varying degrees. Now, as the IMF has said before, we think that over time it's important to tackle the issue of energy subsidies.
Qatar's labor minister said he hopes the country's controversial kafala system, which has been likened to modern-day slavery, may soon be abolished. The minister said he was 90% certain the kafala system would be replaced by the end of 2015. Under the scheme, employers in the Gulf Kingdom can prevent foreign workers from changing jobs or leaving the country. Human rights abuses among foreign workers in Qatar, who make up nearly 90% of the population, became a major focus of criticism since Qatar was awarded the 2022 Football World Cup.
It's not I who says it, it's our vision, our strategy says it, that the new Qatar will no longer be having the kafala system, it will be all contractual agreements between employees and employers.
Brazil's securities industry regulator accused the former board of Petrobras of setting a fuel pricing policy that misguided investors and hurt the company. The former board approved an investment program with specific debt targets, but ran a pricing policy that made it unlikely for those goals to be met, CVM said. Former Petrobras director Paulo Roberto Costa blamed Brazilian politicians for the scandal, saying the main problem affecting Petrobras was the gap in derivative prices fixed by Brasilia. He stopped short from implicating President Dilma Rousseff, who served as Petrobras chairman from 2003 to 2010.
This happened because of the actions of bad politicians. Petrobras didn't invent the cartel, the director of Petrobras didn't invent the cartel, nor the companies which had to bribe the politicians. At the root, the genesis of this problem is here in Brasilia.
The Milan Expo, a showcase of global food, technology, and culture, opened on Friday as anti-globalization activists protested the event. A sequel to the 2010 Expo in Shanghai, this year's Expo showcases, among others, a futuristic supermarket that makes for smarter shopping. I-24 News journalist Ayman Siksak reports from Milan.
This year at the Expo 2015 in Milan, 120 countries are putting forward their most advanced means of producing and distributing food under the theme of feeding the world. At the U.S. pavilion, the issue of raising awareness about global famine was the main focus.
What we're trying to do is educate people, incite them, and ignite them when they leave here to really want to go do something in small ways or big ways to help assist with this problem.
But it's not only impoverished countries who are addressed. Countries in the Middle East shared a large venue in Milan, displaying a shared theme of overcoming agricultural challenges in harsh natural conditions. For Israel, this story is a story of success.
It's the first time that they grow rice rice on a wall, vertical wall, and also without water. It's with irrigation systems.
But even the most impressive of pavilions at the Expo needs a plan B.
Yes, actually we have the same wall as a backup in this greenhouse. So if something happens, we just replace the plants.
And as the spokesman for the Israeli pavilion tells us, feeding the world can be an expensive undertaking.
It's a project of approximately 12 million euros. It's like Olympic Games of exhibitions, and so people are coming here to enjoy themselves. So basically it's also a lot of PR.
But for one of the directors of KKL who partnered with the Israeli pavilion, the secret to good PR is not always money.
Often people ask, why is Israel so successful? And one of the things why we are so successful is because most of the information is for free. If you look at all the agriculture, what's happening in the research and development, it's all for free.
A pressing theme for the Expo was the move of humankind from the rural to the industrial and from the natural to the economic.
Well, with 10 million tickets already sold and 20 million visitors expected to arrive, Italy is set to generate over 10 billion euros during the 6-month-long period of the exhibition. So it seems that here at the Expo 2015, despite the public uproar, it's business as usual.
Thursday, May 7th, the UK goes to the voting polls in what promises to be one of the closest elections in decades. As the Conservatives and Labour point to each other's failings to warn the masses of impending pandemonium, they're unlikely to join forces. With us in the studio to make sense of it all is Dubi Gross, a former city finance solicitor and currently a partner with the Tel Aviv law firm Gornitsky & Co. First, let's see the following report.
On May 7th, Britain votes on its next parliament, and all reports point to this being one of the closest elections in decades.
Thank you very much.
At the center of this race are economic issues, as the UK has felt the drag of austerity and growing inequality take their toll. The race is hot in these final days as Labour leader Ed Miliband puts Prime Minister David Cameron's economic record under a microscope, including his handling of the National Health Service.
The NHS under him is in crisis and under strain. It's a crisis of his making, on his watch, and that's why nobody will trust him with the NHS ever again.
And Cameron works to defend his legacy.
The taxes we've cut, the rates that we've frozen, the employment changes that we've made, the businesses that we've boosted, all those things are at risk.
Meanwhile, the economic situation for many Britons has worsened sharply. A parliamentary inquiry found that there has been a 47% rise in food prices between 2003 and 2013, and over 30% rise in housing costs, with salaries lagging behind, as Prime Minister David Cameron's government has cut welfare amid an austerity-minded period with the aim of dropping the public deficit. It's a situation that some economists have referred to as a move from anti-poverty to anti-poor political culture, according to the Reuters report. It's a culture that has led to disillusionment not only among the growing number of poor and working class, but among young people across the board.
There were hundreds of thousands of young people that went out in the streets to protest, say, no, we don't want the student fees to go up, and nobody listened, you know, protest after protest. So I find that there's a sense of nihilism.
Indeed, a recent poll found that a possible 84% of 18 to 24-year-olds may not cast their ballots. Neither Prime Minister Cameron's Conservatives nor Miliband's Labour show clear signs of a win, as the Liberal Democrats bleed seats due to unhappiness with their role in the outgoing coalition. Though the ultra-nationalist UK Independence Party is not polling well, small parties such as the Scottish National Party and the Greens may find themselves with more power in a possible coalition.
Mr. Gross, it seems like a lot of young people are not so excited about these upcoming elections. What would you say are the main economic issues dominating the pre-election discussion, so to speak?
Well, to frame it generally, I'd say that the Labour is appealing to the sentiment that prosperity is not being equally dispersed, and that most of it is going to top income levels.
Right.
And on the other hand, the Conservatives are saying we inherited an economy in dire situation.
They basically claim that there was the biggest deficit from 97 to 2010. They essentially claim that they saved the UK economy. isn't it?
Well, they inherited a huge deficit,
right.
And the deficit has been reduced. It has been reduced primarily through an austerity plan that was initiated in 2010. And what is happening now is that the Labour are saying that by cutting public spend so aggressively,
right.
It has a negative impact on social matters in the UK.
Of course, and rightfully so, is it? I mean, is it fair to say essentially that, I mean, the Conservatives are in the right here? I mean, isn't it austerity that needed sort of to be implemented because of the financial crisis, because of the general recession? I mean, it's not necessarily the Labour government that caused for the deficit, is it?
Well, the Labour was in government for a very long period prior to the current government.
Right.
And the current government took the view that the right way of going about it is cutting public spend. Traditionally, the Labour would try to avoid that in order to have a stronger public service. And I think, you know, it's very clear through their manifesto.
Right. Now, I mean, essentially, the Conservatives and Labour are very close in the polls. Now, the question is, I mean, if we see a Labour government just the same, you know, and we see this change perhaps with the SNP or some other parties with it, so the idea would be that we'd see austerity out of the window?
Their plan what they're saying in their manifesto very clearly is that they want to abolish the austerity plan, and SNP is apparently on board with that.
What would that mean otherwise? I mean, other issues that stand out, like?
Yes, there are a number of very interesting issues. They're all interrelated in a way. There's the non-dom status.
What is that?
That essentially means that non-UK income is not taxable in the UK for residents that are not domiciled in the UK.
Okay.
And there are quite a few people. There are many people in the UK that reside there and that are not domiciled in the UK, and they're not taxed in the UK for their foreign income.
Which, of course, they consider to be unfair.
So that is considered to be unfair, and also a source for increasing government income.
Right.
So, in essence, what Labour is saying here is, whoever chooses the UK as his home, his or her home, should be paying taxes on an equal basis.
Okay, and this is called, what is it called? It's the mansion tax?
No, that's not the mansion.
That's a different situation altogether.
Yes, that is the non-dom status, tax status.
Okay.
And another one needs to bear in mind, though, that the non-dom status is has been around traditionally. That has been around in the UK.
Something attracting people, so to speak, to come to the UK. It
attracted a lot of people to the UK that contributed to creating employment and growth. So it's not a simple issue, but it's one that's difficult, definitely being discussed.
Now, what is the mansion tax? Well, let's talk about that.
Well. The Labour came up, as part of its plan. What it is saying is that for people that have property or a home worth over £2 million, there's going to be a tax levied on that, and that is not.
Many people have that kind of a home in England?
Well, mostly in London, you have people that own homes having that value.
Of course, it's a big city, right?
Less outside of London, so you understand the divide. What is really happening here is that this is a tax that is not related to any realization of value on that property. It is not related to any to cash flows or income.
Right.
It's just a tax on perceived wealth.
I see.
And there are people that have owned these houses for many, many years. They've increased in value, but they're not necessarily cash rich.
Right.
So this is, as you can assume, this is highly debated. And the Labour's plan for the income from this tax would be to fund the NHS.
Gotcha. Well, which actually gets us to the next point, which I wanted to discuss, the NHS, which is a big point here.
So yes, the NHS is always an issue.
National health, of course, it's a big issue in America.
A topic of discussion in the U.S., in the United Kingdom. the basic issue here is that over recent years, the NHS has been privatizing a lot of its services, and the Labour wants to stop that and keep as many services public as possible.
I see. That makes complete sense, I suppose. It's an ongoing debate, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Yes,
on Thursday.
It's a tight one. It'll be very, very interesting to see where this takes us.
Thank you so very much, Julie Gross, for joining us from Gornitsky Partners. Thank you very much. That concludes our Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at I-24 News. I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares. Watch us again tomorrow.